Stephanie, and let's talk books. So there's been a trend in the fantasy genre towards bigger, longer, and more epic series. Unfortunately, there's also been a trend towards authors not finishing a series or waiting a really, really long time between books. Some series have been waiting over a decade for the next installment. So today I wanted to bring you guys some recommendations of great fantasy series that are finished. So let's go ahead and jump into the books. So the first series I wanted to talk about is the Belgariad by David Eddings. This is a classic fantasy series. It consists of 5 volumes. I have the omnibus editions, which have 3 and 2 books in each volume, respectively. This series follows a young boy named Garion who is living with his Aunt Pole in a farm, kind of in the country, and he gets pulled into this grand adventure with this big prophecy and all of these important people and gods and goddesses and magic and all this other stuff. So the story revolves around this magical orb, which no one except for this extinct royal family is supposed to be able to touch, and it gets stolen by one of the minions of an evil god, and Garion, his Aunt Pole, and a whole bunch of other people kind of get wrapped up in the crew that is trying to get this orb back and keep the evil god from being resurrected and taking over the world. So it's definitely a classic fantasy. It has a lot of those really familiar classic fantasy tropes, but it is a really great series. Another thing about this series I really like is the world is very large. Because David Eddings also wrote another series, The Malorian, which is also 5 books, and it takes place in the same world. We have a lot of the same characters that are coming back and having yet another adventure. And he also wrote 2 really big prequel novels following the past of 2 of the main characters in this story. And so there's a lot to explore in this world if you really enjoy it. And even though the individual books in the main series aren't particularly long, there's a total of 12 books that sort of follow in the same world. So there's a lot to explore. Next series I wanted to talk about is the Troy Game by Sara Douglas. This is another epic fantasy series. It has 4 volumes. First up we have Hades' Daughter, then The God's Concubine, Dark Witch Rising, and finally Druid's Sword. So this story will definitely appeal to fans of Greek mythology as well as fans of British history. So this story involves a group of Greeks who end up settling in ancient England. One of the characters, Brutus, receives a vision of resurrecting the Troy Game, which is the basis of their magic system. This also relies heavily on the story of the Minotaur, as he is the main bad guy here. He has been trapped in this labyrinth ever since the fall of Troy and the collapse of their magic system, and he is trying to get out while our hero Brutus is trying to re-establish a new city in what is now England so that they can have their magic system back. But things take a little bit of a wrong turn, and all of our characters get caught up in being reincarnated. So this story takes place in 4 different periods over British history, again starting kind of in ancient Greece and going all the way up to World War II. So there are a lot of mentions of important historical events and people, as well as this thread of Greek mythology and this really cool magic system. So I really love this series and that aspect of our heroes having to be reborn again and again and again until they are able to complete this magic. If you are looking for a series that is a great adventure series with a cool, different kind of magic, and if you like adventure and exploration stories, the Secret Atlas series is for you. So this has 3 books, A Secret Atlas, Cartomancy, and The New World. The story follows a family of magical cartographers that is headed by the domineering grandfather, and it focuses around his 3 grandchildren, 2 brothers and a sister. The 2 brothers are set out on different expeditions to explore different parts of their world because this family has a lot of political power because they have the best maps and everybody comes to them for their maps. So they're looking to map unexplored parts of the world, and then the sister is left at home to deal with all of the politics at home. But at the last minute, the grandfather switches which brother is going on which expedition, and then they find themselves on a journey that they're not really prepared for. This story is set in a world where there was this magical cataclysm in their past, and so there's not a lot of magic around and available in the civilized world now, but one of the brothers is sent into the wastes where all the crazy wild magic and different weird creatures that have been twisted by magic are, and then the other one is set off out across the sea. And so that storyline is kind of based on the idea of what if instead of the Europeans discovering the Americas, it was from one of the Asian countries that discovered America. And so that is kind of a really cool twist on the story. It's just a really fun adventure to go along with these brothers and then also to follow the sister and see what happens in all these different events that this family gets swept up in. Alright, the last series is another big one, and that is the Chronicles of the Cheysuli. Again, I have an omnibus edition, so each of my books contains 2 volumes, so there's a total of 8 books in the series. This just happens to be the format that I have. This is another story that focuses around the fulfillment of a prophecy. It has to do with a race of people who have this ability to communicate with animals and change shape into animals. So there's a lot of great animal companions. Unfortunately, they used to rule this country, but they got taken over by another country, and so they are hated and disgraced, and they are looked down upon by the people who have conquered their country. But there is a prophecy that one day someone from this lineage is going to unite all of the different peoples in their world and then be able to defeat their arch enemies, which are dark wizards. Each of these volumes follows a different generation in this prophecy. As we see, each generation tries to take a step forward closer to the fulfillment of this prophecy, but of course their enemies, the wizards, are trying to stop them at every turn. There's also other sort of more normal political turmoil going on, and it's really cool because you get to see a lot of these characters in several books at different ages and sort of see how they grow and change throughout the series, and its story just becomes really big and really epic, and at the end it's just really cool to see how all of these different threads from all of these different families get woven together in the end to attempt to fulfill this prophecy. So here are all of the Chronicles of the Cheysuli.